Today I'm going to show you how to make an herbal salve. It's very, very simple. There are only a few ingredients, and if you're like me, you would prefer to use natural things rather than stuff that's loaded with chemicals. So what we're going to be making is a basic salve base, which is a soft oil and a beeswax. And there are basically two steps to it. You have to infuse your oil with whatever herb you're using, whether it be Comfrey, Arnica. These are all dry herbs that can be ordered from supply houses around the country. They're not super expensive. To infuse them, it's much like making a cup of tea, except you're doing it with the loose herbs in an oil of your choice. And I use olive oil for this just because it's readily available. What we're going to be doing today is making a Comfrey salve. Let's get started. First of all, the first step is to infuse your salve. So, clean, empty jar. The scale that I use is a digital scale, and it's got a tare feature so that it will remove the weight of your container. For this step, we're going to be using ounces. So first of all, measure out 2 ounces of olive oil into your jar. Next, we're going to get our dry herb in another container. Make sure you zero out your scale to remove the weight of the container. And we'll be using 1 ounce of comfrey leaves. 1 dry ounce. And this is the messy part. Got to pour all of this into that without getting it all over everywhere. Next, we're going to add another 6 ounces of olive oil for a total of 8 ounces of olive oil, or 1 cup, to 1 ounce of dry herb. Okay, the next thing we need to do is we need to heat this oil and herb mixture, much like you would steep a cup of tea. You could actually cap this bottle or this jar off and sit it in a cool, dark place, like up in a cupboard, for a week or 2, and it will infuse naturally. But in order to speed up the process, we use a double boiler and heat the oil. I don't have a double boiler, but I do have a pot, and I'm going to make a double boiler. And I am now going to heat this on medium heat till it gets steamy, and then reduce it to simmer and let it simmer for 2 hours. My herbal infusion sat overnight. It was in the double boiler on a low simmer for 3 hours. I did have to add a little extra water to it because it did evaporate out. So you have to watch. Don't just let it go. If you have a small crock pot, those are wonderful. And I have this jar of my steeped herbs, and now we need to strain the plant matter out of it. You're going to need either cheesecloth or a fine sieve. I'm going to try the sieve first. I do have cheesecloth, and if there's a lot of cloudiness in it, I may opt to cheesecloth it, but we're going to try this first. And I have a Pyrex measuring cup. And what we shall do is strain out the plant matter. Plant matter will have absorbed quite a bit of the oil. You're going to end up with about 1/2 to 2/3 of the oil you started with. So what we do is try and squeeze that oil out as much as possible, and I have found it to be very effective to just get in there and squish with rubber gloves. And you're going to discard the plant matter. If you would like for the oil to be a bit clearer, There is some sediment in the bottom of my oil. I don't know if you can see that. And if that bothers you, you can cheesecloth it right out of there. It doesn't bother me at all. What we're going to do is combine this herbal infused oil with some beeswax. And we melt the beeswax and the oil together until the beeswax is liquid. In a second clean glass measuring cup, we're going to measure out 96 milliliters of the herbal infused oil. Beeswax. Tear your scale out to 0, and we are going to measure out 24 milliliters of beeswax right into this little pot. If you're afraid you might go over, you might want to measure out into a separate container and then add the beeswax perfectly measured to your oil. And we make a double boiler again with a pot full of water. Take this right over to the stove, put it on medium-high heat, let it get steamy, and wait and stir until all of the beeswax is melted. While our mixture is heating on the stove, and I'm going to watch it. It's going to take about 15 minutes for it to heat up and for the beeswax to melt. Just going to stir it around with a spoon and make sure that the beeswax is melted and fully incorporated. What we're going to be putting the salve in, or packaging the salve in, are these wonderful little 1 ounce tins with screw tops. These, you can actually get them 1 ounce, 2 ounce, 4 ounce, and even 8 ounce. So I'm going to stir continuously over medium heat. We don't want it to boil because you might get water into the oil and herb mixture. We're going to let that beeswax melt. I am adding some thyme oil. Thyme oil is known to be a germ and bacteria killer. If you are going to be using this salve on skin, and there might be any irritated or broken areas of skin, perhaps on a bruise, this is a good additive for that purpose. And stir and stir until it's completely melted. Okay, I've got our oil. It's hot right off the double boiler, and the beeswax is completely melted. And I've got my essential oil in here. And I can see from my measuring cup that it made about a half a cup of finished product. It all works out. Pour this in our tins. These are 1 ounce tins. The recipe made 4 1 ounce tins. It will take a while for them to cool and harden up, and you will have a beautiful herbal salve to use, to give away, to keep in every bathroom of your house. What I'm going to do is label these and stow them in my closet warehouse.